things that we want to talk about today. And specifically, here I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about, what I call revolutions in the generative AI space, the broader, more consultative view that Kyndryl will take when we speak with our customers about generative AI and Microsoft 365 Copilot, and then, allow that to pass into a more technical, detailed conversation that Scott and Ping will lead for you. And so with that in mind, for some, the advent of generative AI, with the ChatGPT announcements in late 2022, was really merely the next stepping stone on a journey where our industry has focused on incorporating assisted automation, new artificial intelligence, and machine learning into our business processes. And to a degree, that's absolutely true. The organizations that leverage these tools will undoubtedly automate their workflow and will benefit. However, for me, the introduction of these new generative tools really takes to a new level of this artificial intelligence evolution. We're now providing organizations with really the tools to not only just optimize the way things are doing, but profoundly change how our employees and our customers use and consume those services. So it's that double change that creates the right conditions for this industrial revolution. And so, we look at this in terms of concepts of industrial revolutions. And the first of these took, 100 years to manifest itself fully throughout the world and its impact on mankind, the introduction of steam power from 1750 to 1850. The second of these, the introduction of electricity, we loosely categorized as having its impact between, about an 80-year stretch, 1850 to 1930 in this way. But we begin to see that these evolutionary changes have more and more impact on our enterprises, on our business models, and on the way humankind operates, and paradoxically taking less time to manifest themselves. We move forward into the last century in the introduction of computing, the mainframe, introduction, and that evolution into personal computing created another whole new revolution around how enterprises began and how enterprises operate. And I think we can all agree that this probably marked the earliest stages of the creation of truly global enterprises, the being able to leverage that compute power that could scale them from a local presence to subsequently a national presence, and then eventually a global presence. The fourth of these, and driven, by the power of Moore's law, the doubling of processing speed and also the doubling of networking speed, really created the environment for the internet and internet working to emerge and fundamentally really drive new and different business models and game-changing differences in how we work. And we can all think of the kind of case studies over the last 20 to 25 years where fundamental businesses have gone out of business because of not being able to see a change that was coming. And so this is where I really do believe that where we're at with generative AI, the advent of generative AI and capabilities like Microsoft Copilot really are going to build a new revolution in industry. And it is my opinion that the enterprises that are out there that take advantage of these tools to optimize their processes, to optimize their end user experience, and to change the way their customers engage with them will be the true winners. And for those that don't adopt these tools or are resistant to this change, that may mean bad news for some of those organizations. So what are the kind of lessons that we can kind of learn from the prior revolutions and what this has meant for major enterprises? We all know that business models have been reinvented. We can think about how a taxi driver's world has changed as the former taxi industry has been replaced by services like Uber and Lyft. We all know that examples of the firms like Blockbuster who resisted a move online and were ultimately put completely out of business at the hands of someone like Netflix and others. But we also take note of how some of these legacy firms were able to adapt to those changes, and where others tried and were not so successful. The likes of Walmart and Costco still remain very relevant in our retail space, where, and I looked it up, Toys R Us as a firm identified the need to adapt. They implemented an online store as far back as 1998, but for whatever reason, that was not enough to ensure their ongoing success. And so, in addition, then, really fundamentally exciting, interesting use cases that came from that prior revolution were, the capabilities like an Airbnb or a Spotify, where people really fought the old ways of doing things, fought old rules, and created an entire new category of company out of it. And sometimes even had to be very aggressive with some of the blockers that were blocking them, and I'll get into that on my next slide. So these business models have really revolutionized lots of industries in that internet working revolution. I urge all of those who are participants in the generative AI model to see that this similar kind of reinventions and remodels are probably on our doorstep. And I encourage you all to talk to companies like Kyndryl to learn more about how you can adopt and take advantage of these cases. And with that in mind, there are absolutely blockers out there. There are blockers that will discourage this vision. There are blockers that will exist perhaps within your customer base, perhaps within your user base, and certainly within your own senior executive levels. Those blockers might be ethical questions like, how ethical is it for my employees to use a generative AI tool to generate content? Legal blockers, and we certainly have bumped into some of these here at Kyndryl. Does the underlying technology create a scenario where my business is at risk of even breaking the law by using a generative AI tool? Financial blockers. I think probably everybody here understands at this point that the technology behind this isn't cheap. So I need to be in a position where I'm assuring my stakeholders that by investing in this, that I'm going to deliver a cost-effective solution and direction. And last but not least, the one that I'm actually most interested in, because I think it provides opportunity for all of us to take a bite out of, is trustworthiness, right? The tool set just maybe provided my organization with a great insight into our sales performance, but I still feel compelled to ask myself, can I trust that insight? How accurate was the source data that the large language model used to generate that answer? How do I know that it is not looking at old data that I don't, that is no longer relevant to me, and all these kinds of things. So these are the thought processes that, a consultative discussion about where a company is going with generative AI need to focus in on, and need to need to really take steps to answer before a successful Copilot deployment. And so breaking through those, who really gets on the initial ground game of a Copilot deployment. This is based at least partly on our own experience here, but I would suggest that executive sponsorship, of course, you might say, but executive sponsorship is critically important here. This is a heavy financial decision in a lot of cases, and it's also going to be something with legal and ethical implications. And so you really do need to make sure that you've got the right buy-in at those levels. We would suggest including using senior users in your pilot rollout. Those senior people, in fact, one thing that I know we discovered here at Kyndryl in our own rollout was that, every user has their own light bulb moment as to what it is that the Microsoft Copilot technology really turns on for them. And that applies just as importantly for your senior executive users. And when they get their light bulb moment, they'll too back your initiative. And I really would also strongly suggest that you take your assessment and govern your use of AI and Copilot technologies like this with some form of a cross-functional council. This is not just an IT decision. This is something that will require input from HR, will require input from your product teams, from sales and marketing, because everybody will be able to use it and everybody will have their own set of unique and different concerns. That segues perfectly into defining your high value scenarios. Before you move forward, sit down with the group of people involved, that cross-functional council, and define 10, 20, 50, whatever the number is appropriate, high value scenarios. Come up with the hypotheses behind which you think that you're going to generate new value for your firm or your organization. Align those high value scenarios with your pilot user selections. And then on the completion of your pilot, validate your hypothesis. Did it work? Did it not work? And try as best possible. It's not always easy, but try to determine, some ROI against this. Last but not least, before you go too far, secure your data, right? Ensure upfront that your data is secure. Make sure that things like data sensitivity labels are up to date and are accurate as you go into this. I put here, leverage the opportunity to maybe clean up some old and inaccurate data that's out there. And this is critically important because also the last thing that anyone would want coming out of a pilot that is trying to validate a number of high value scenarios would be that you had some kind of data security issue or data loss problem that emerged, and that would have the risk of essentially impacting the success of your entire pilot. So with that, I hope that provides a bit of an oversight of Kyndryl's view to generative AI and Microsoft partnership and Microsoft Copilot. And I'm going to pass the baton back to Scott, who is going to take us into a deeper dive into to some of the technology issues and the experiences here at Kyndryl. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. And so real quick here, if you guys want to try your reaction tab there in Teams, I'd love to see a thumbs up if you currently are running Copilot for M365. So while you're doing that, we'll just kind of see what pops up here and we see a bunch or not. But I wanted to level set on Copilot because it is a name a lot like when Teams came out that can be a little confusing of all the different Copilots. So in general, Microsoft Copilot, at least the way that I like to think about it, is it's the commercialized version of OpenAI. Everything on the left side of the screen there, Copilots are commercialized. They've taken all the knobs and the switches away from it and made it usable, so I can just turn it on and go. And then we've got some of the aspects of Azure OpenAI, which is maybe I want to get in and change the large language model I'm using, or I want to tweak it or make some additional changes. That's when I might start getting into more of the Azure hosting of these different platforms and large language models. But we're going to be talking about Copilot, so the commercialized version, and there's a ton of flavors of it. So from left to right, just to level set, I want us all to, those of you who are not as familiar, hopefully this helps. So Bing is no longer. That's our first left there. I know that's the wrong icon. Bing is now Copilot. So everybody in the world has Copilot if they want. Well, this is where it gets confusing. And we'll talk a little bit more in another slide and dive a little bit deeper. But a straight Copilot or Copilot for web, that's our Bing search. And then we can also protect that, company protection, add that on there. But then we've got M365 Copilot. This is when our Copilot can actually go in and look at OneDrive content, email content, Teams chats, and bring that all together. So this is where it's starting to bring in, okay, this is my work life, and Copilot can see it. GitHub, that's more of our coders, right? So we'll breeze over that. That's a previous life of mine, but that's going to help people write code, test code, and all of the life cycle of code. Security, it's exactly what it is. I can ask Copilot security related questions. to try to drive down and figure out where maybe I have an intrusion or detect them early. And then Windows, I try to think of this as the new Clippy, right? This is the Copilot on my Windows 11 operating system that I can say, help me reconfigure my Wi-Fi, help me find my new screen resolution, things like that. And then Power Platform is putting Copilot on top of our community-driven, really that allowing any user to create applications. Well, now I can have Copilot give me some suggestions similar to a GitHub, but a little more in that context of Power Platform and the way that it connects and deploys applications for the citizen developer. And then a couple of the advanced ones are Copilot for Sales, Copilot for Service, and we'll see additional of these services come out in the near future as the Copilots get tightened in. Michelle, you have your hand up, so I'm going to pause.
No, I think that's great. What I like to always share, because I live in the Copilot space for M365, is the vernacular when you think of how to say these things, because it, the Bing Chen Enterprise is now Copilot, but it's kind of confusing. So really the best way to think about it is it's Copilot for what? Copilot for M365, Copilot powered by Bing, Copilot for security. So just thinking of always just using Copilot first, that might help you in that understanding. But I know I have a lot of customers that are trying to explain to their end users as well, what are all the differences? And I think this does a pretty good job. And you can find this out on the adoption website for Copilot specifically. So if you like this slide, I think you can find it out there. Or Scott, I'm sure you could probably share it too. So I just wanted to add that in because I think it's easier to speak to it by just using the Copilot first.
I think that's it. And then just to dive a little bit deeper into exactly what you were saying there, here's a quick look at a little deeper dive into some of the feature sets that you get with these Copilots, right? Copilot for web, right? That's my old Bing. That's on my far left over here. A personal Copilot, allowing me to do my web searches, get some answers, and do some content creation, but no context of or security around what I'm doing there. This is a publicly available. Everybody gets it for free. Now we move a little bit farther to the right. Copilot with commercial data protection. Once again, free with users that have Entra ID. So basically, this means my organization has tied my Entra ID to the Microsoft Copilot infrastructure. And now my chats are secure. My questions, my queries are going to be secure, and they're not going to be used by the LLM to do additional learning. So this is secure now. So once again, free allows me to, you'll see commercial data protection pops up in your Copilots. So it is identified and shows it to you. So you know that, hey, I'm safe. I'm making a query that I'm not sending PII data across the wire to somewhere that it shouldn't be. And as we move over, now we have to pay for our licenses into Copilot M365. I think this is one key point for our entire talk, is because if we had the same conversation around Microsoft Teams and enabling and what metrics I have and all of that, it's a wonderful conversation, and most organizations do have that. The difference here is that when I had that conversation for Microsoft Teams, it was part of everybody's license. I wasn't incurring additional cost. When I double my cost for my enterprise collaboration license from an E3 to an E3 with M365, that's another $30, and that's a big impact, as well as it's a 12-month commitment for that license. So I think that puts a different context on it, where I do care how much people are using this, and if they're not using it, that I want to use those resources in a different way. So kind of making that shift that we're paying to use this, so we're going to treat it just a little bit different, and we're paying a lot more. So Copilot for M365 incurs that $30 a month per user. But this is where we start to get into all the Microsoft Graph context. I can look at my documents, and really this is where it adds and saves me at least an hour a day, if not more, if I went through and showed how I use this all the time. And the final one is where we're starting to get it more information, is Copilot for Service. There's Copilot for Sales. This is more these Copilots, but this is where we take Copilot, the $30 cal, and throw another 20 on it. So this 50 does include the Copilot license for M365. But now we are including integration for service. It's a call center data. It's service management, like an ITSM system. Where now all of a sudden I can leverage that context and that information with out of the box connectors for these Copilot conversations that I might be having in a call center scenario where I want to pull up what else has this user, what other issues are going on, information about that user. And finally, underneath everything is Copilot Studio. Think of this is where our old Power Virtual Agent is. That guy, just like Bing, is no longer with us. It has been resurrected as Copilot Studio, and it is out there and available, and we'll be showing that demo and some of the abilities that you can do there. But this is where we're going to take Copilot and extend it without going all the way to the OpenAI, Azure OpenAI services. We're just going to do some tweaks in there and use Copilot Studio to kind of jump in that pipeline of the conversation that's going through Copilot. So that's just a little level set. So hopefully we've got everybody a little bit on the same page that Copilot is a lot of different things. Today we're going to be talking Copilot for web, and our demos are around Copilot for web. Some of that is because of the licensing around M365. But the big point on prompting versus searching, I let Copilot answer this for me on the left there. Like, what's the difference between prompting and searching, Copilot? And it came out with a pretty good answer there. As we see, search terms are used to find existing information. With generative AI prompts, they're used to generate new information. And that really kind of helps me understand that I've got to make a mind shift here. It's instead of the old way where I would query something, get a result back, and then I would probably do additional queries on that result, I can do that all in one. If I tell Copilot and the prompt more of what I want, it's going to come back for it right away. So as we see there, what is the makeup of a prompt here is telling it what it wants. It's like talking to my grandma, right? Like if I need to explain something, what do I need? Why do I need it? Where am I getting it for? And can you put it in a format that I like? And so that's one way to think about your prompts. But what we've seen is that this is a new thought process for us, right? At least personally, I don't always think of that. I generally just say, give me some information about X. Well, I can think a little bit more and tell it more context around that. And M365 has actually given us a whole bunch of these out of the box free prompts to get us started and to help us thinking about those. You'll see them in a bunch of different formats. Didn't want to throw in a bunch of screenshots, but in your Office applications, they will give you prompts that are relevant to that type of document. In a Teams meeting, you'll get prompts that are relevant to the meeting. What are the talking points? What have I missed yet in this meeting? Things like this if you haven't seen them. And then you can also create and generate new prompts that might be more relevant to your business. But the one gotcha that I would say, if anybody's, or the best thing that I've seen that literally saves me hours a week, is the upper left there called What's New. And it's basically you're saying, what's new from this person? And you're able to inject the context of that person, their ID, right? So it actually pulls really good data from them. But if I were to run what's new from David Sterling, it would come back and it would give me a really cool list. I wish I could share it with you, but it's internal data, so I can't. But it would give me a list of all the email conversations I've had, all the chat conversations I've had, and then all the files that we've exchanged over the last 7 days. And the reason that saves a ton of time for me is I forget where things are. Was that emailed to me? Did someone throw that in a Teams chat? Was it a different mechanism of delivering it, right? Like a share? This way, Copilot is going to go do all that work for me. It's going to search through my email, my Teams conversations, and bring it back. But as we get those sort of prompts, you'll find that sweet prompt that really makes your life better, right? Tweaking some of these, bring it back to me in a bulleted list with links to the documents and a reference somewhere else, right? Things like that. I think one big thing when learning these prompts that you can do is when you're in a meeting with someone, share them, share your screen, show them the results you're getting back, show them this neat thing. Like maybe you ask Copilot, what's the feeling of everybody's, what's the, what's the meeting feeling in this meeting? And you'll be surprised it comes back. It's a little confrontational. People have some opinions, but those are fun things to play with your Copilot, and will the fun will translate into useful and actually identify what your business needs are a little bit more. And then I want to, so this is a real use case example that we have drummed up and have been using internally here, leveraging a new Copilot. So we create our own Copilot. I'm going to be handing this off, and Ping Wong, our architect here in our space, will be showing you how to create this. So after this call, you could run out and create your own Copilot that does some of this with open source, not open source, open tools that Microsoft has provided to us. But the point is, many times, in my case, as someone who responds to RFPs, maybe it's somebody that responds to some other type of document or really has a ton of documents they have to comb through quickly. What we've seen is I'll receive a zip file that has 2 Word docs and 3 PowerPoints and a bunch of Excel docs. And they say, here's our RFP from Acme, and they want us to modernize their M365 environment. And I need to start looking through these documents. Well, that could take me days, and it might be redundant. So by putting Copilot out there, I can say, Copilot, look at just this document library. That's all I want you to look at. I'm just putting the blinders on you. And now I can ask Copilot questions that, as we'll see in the demo, things about the RFP. When is it due? Are there any FedRAMP requirements? Things like this that I can pull out really quickly. So using that to save me hours and hours of time in replying to an RFP. So with that, Ping, if you want to take over the screen, feel free. And Ping will be opening up Copilot Studio in a CDX tenant and sharing kind of our learnings there, along with what you can do out there, how you can customize it, how you can do some prompts and things like that. So, all right, here it comes. So, and as Ping's demoing this, I'm going to a quick precursor while he's pulling it up. Some of this is not the fastest as it's new. So during our demo, you'll see we're trying to do our live demo, but some of the saves take 5 minutes to process. So bear with us as we've kind of done some demo magic there. Ping, I will be quiet for a little bit.
All right. You hear me okay, Scott?
All good.
All right. Thank you, Scott. So for the M365 Copilot myself, my favorite use case is actually taking a Microsoft Word document and turning it into a PowerPoint deck. It's really handy. Anyway, so basically in this demo, I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a powerful Copilot using Copilot Studio. Many of you might already be familiar with the Microsoft Copilot Studio, which was announced at Ignite last year, right? So it is a user-friendly, low-code platform that allows you to customize Copilot for M365 and build standalone Copilots, right? So for those of you who with extensive experience or a deep technical background, while today's demo is actually designed with the beginner in mind, so we welcome your insight and share additional scenario where you see Copilot Studio enhancing your workflow or addressing particular challenges, right? So let's jump in. So today we're gonna creating a simple version of RFP Copilot, right? So this Copilot will process an RFP document, enabling users to ask questions to find the exact information they need, right? So first, let's take a look at what this Copilot does. So what you see here is a demo website for our RFP Copilot, right? I already got the RFP document from Scott and loaded up in our Copilot in Dataverse. So here's the demo website. That's what you can do, right? For an RFP document, what are the typical questions we would like to know, right? Let's say, what are the technical solution requirements? Let's try that.
And while Ping is typing that out, just so this is a publicly accessible RFP from a couple years ago. So the dates will show a little couple years old. So we want to make sure we weren't using any PII, if you will. So
right. You notice how, like, in addition to the answer we need, the Copilot also offer a best practice, like here. like related to the query. I'm going to show you how it's done. Okay, so let's find out the deadline for the RFP, right? So I have a few quick replies here, right? I don't want to type all that. So I'm going to just take advantage of that and say, hey, proposal due date, what is it? All right, well, 2021, I passed. It was a couple years back, all right? And then let's find out the how do I submit the proposal? Well, actually, it's not bad, but I actually want to find out the mailing address, right? So let's ask about it. All right, okay, you got that. That's great. So just in case, right, if you really want to validate the answer, like there's a citation here, that's a link. When you click it, it gives you the information you need. Like, you just you want to double check, and you can do that, right? So with that, let's find out how we can build it from scratch.
And once again, while Ping's loading that up, the environment that Ping is showing this is a demo environment provided by Microsoft called a CDX environment that will have links and how to spin this up yourself.
Right. So basically, for when you go to the Copilot Studio, right? The link is copilotstudio.microsoft.com. Right? For the Power Virtual Agent, powerva.microsoft.com, it seems like they're going to the same place, but going forward, I think copilotstudio.microsoft.com is the one we will be using. So when we do that, we will create a new Copilot, right? So you're going to give it a unique name, right? Say Pilot 6, for example, right? And then just like create, right? Here it's also give you an option to enter a external website, right? If you want to reference use external website like Microsoft website for some technical information, if your Copilot is trying to get to learn more about particular product, we can do that. You can do it here, right? And then, but for our use case or demo, basically we just click create. Well, since it's going to take a while, if I click create, let's go to the one that I have created before.
And the example that the way we've used that website while you're doing that, Ping, is let's say my RFP is for Acme Company. If I put a reference to their public website in there, now I can Copilot will also bring back some context about them, right? Oh, their board of directors meeting is coming up a week before, whatever you need to know. But that's kind of how it might fall into this situation.
All right. So the next thing I want to do is to configure the data source, right, and enable the Gen AI feature. So when you do that, you basically click Generative AI, right? In this page, if you want to use like public website or SharePoint as the data source, you can configure them here, right? As you can see, it's actually disabled right now. What you need to do is you have to enable the Gen AI feature. When you do that, it's now enabled, right? So if please keep in mind, right, there's some limitation on how many website you can use, right? So currently, I think you can choose up to 4 public website and 4 Microsoft internal sites for the Copilot to use to create dynamic and generative answers, right? And also when you specify the website, you can only specify up to 2 level deep. What does that mean? So I'm going to show you, right? Let's say Microsoft.com, ENUS, say Microsoft 365, and then you go business. You see, when I start typing, the lower level pages, it's gonna complain, right? The website can be more than 2 level deep, right? So basically, all you can do is specify 2 level deep, right? So it covers a lot of information. What it means is all the sub pages, it will process them, right? So since we're using PDF, so I'm going to skip that box and move to the section where we can upload a document. So to do that is pretty easy. Just click to browse and then just select the document and basically click OK, and it will upload it to Dataverse, right? And you can see there's a limitation on 3 megabytes per file, and you can upload as many as you want as long as your Dataverse have enough storage. Okay.
And for purposes of the demo, so everybody knows, we're using that feature set. But in terms of what we use in a true scenario, which is a little more complicated, is using a SharePoint source, so I can have multiple files and I'm not limited by that 3 megabit file. So if that question was coming up, this is more for demo purposes. The SharePoint stuff works fine. It's just a little bit harder to demo quickly.
Right. So for this page, all I need to do is just upload a file and enable this option here, right? And then click save. If I do that, it's going to take several minutes, so we don't have that kind of time. And let's move on to, because I already have another one created. So let's do that. So basically, this one, what we want to do here, right, after we get the data source, we enable the Gen AI feature, right? And now I want to do some customization of the, say, the messages, right? So say, when you go back here at the very beginning, you see there's the messages here, right? You see how it looks like this, right? So I want to customize it, right? So to do that, basically, you just go to Topics and Plugins, go to Systems, and go to Conversation Start.
And those are all events that are going to be fired in any conversation with Copilot. So Ping's just jumping into one of those events.
Right. So basically, you just need to modify it, right? So I have already customized it here. So basically, it says your virtual assistant designed to streamline your RFP response process, right? So after that, you just click Save, right? In some cases where you want to jump right after the welcome message to a particular note, you can actually say add a note. Say, for example, jump to another topic, right? You can move over to like greeting, like for example, after they do the welcome message, and it will basically go to greeting topic, and it will like ask how may I help you, right? You see here when it starts, it doesn't do that, right? If you want to configure the behavior, we can actually add a note here, just basically to jump to another topic, right? And then basically, after we do that here, we can look at the custom instruction, right? So like
Yep,
before, before what we got here is we have the best practice here, right? So I'm going to show you how it's done. So basically, we can go back.
And I think what Ping is going to be showing us here is that when I ask Copilot to do something, I might want to give it some context, right? So that's what conversational boosting is, where I can tell it a little bit more, speak with an accent, or respond in a bubbly tone, or kind of inject and give it some guardrails as you're opening up Ping. That's so he's going to be showing that and some of the aspects that we added there. I think, even about your best practices, right?
Yep. So basically, there's many ways you can take advantage of this feature, right? So if you go to this conversational boosting and then you click this create generative answers and then do property, and basically you can provide a custom instruction, right? Like what Scott was saying, there's many ways that you can take advantage of that. What we are going to do here, we're going to just say, at the end of each response, give me a best practice, right? Or you can do more than that, right? So you can play around with the custom instruction and tell, how it process the information and give you the response. So basically, I was doing a little bit of digging, right? So basically, right now, the Copilot Studio, they are using GPT-3.5 Turbo for the text summarization. For more complex tasks like creating a topic with Copilot, is using GPT-4. So so there's some large language model, what is using behind the scene, right? So basically, after you do that, you just have to do save, and it will take a few minutes, and then it will do a thing and give you the best practice in addition to the answer you're looking for, right? Now.
And I think this is just to jump in again, Ping. This is where my mind has to shift, because my mind was, give me an answer, then I'm going to go back and do something with that data. And Ping's, this is showing what Copilot can take care of that on the fly. Give me a best practice. Give me an example of how somebody else has already responded to this question. Those sort of things that I will generally take offline and do a second query, right? Like, give me an example of a, ISO 3500 formatted, whatever it is. Well, I could just tell Copilot to do that for me. And it's that mind shift, prompt versus search. And I think it's pretty cool stuff.
So another tips on this, right? After you save, and it will take a few minutes or even several minutes before it actually start working. So yeah, you have to have patience, or else like you will say, why it's not working, right? So it will take time.
Yeah, hey Ping, why don't you do a query and see if it spits back the generic I don't know answer? I think it generally, if you're doing this and you see a response that says I can't understand your question, it generally means that it hasn't fully saved and propagated in the semantic index when I've seen that before. So if you see that, let it sit 10 minutes and then try again.
Yeah. Right now is we already got the it probably won't happen here. Let's see with the RFP. So basically, I didn't upload a file, and I didn't configure all that stuff. I don't know if it's gonna give you that. Maybe I did. Yes, I did. Okay. So yeah, so it was like more than a few minutes, so it already got it processed it already. It takes time to do the indexing and Dataverse and stuff like that.
Nice.
But yeah, but anyway, so another thing I like to do is to create some quick replies. What is quick replies? Well, basically, it's just some shortcut or a way for you end user to click and without having to type out the entire query. So some of the questions like, that we anticipate the user would enter, right? Like what are the technical solution requirement, right? And then you can kind of, give it a title. So basically say solution requirement, right? And then it give you the entire query. So to do that is quite simple. So let's do that. So basically, I like to do it at greeting, right? And this like topic, and basically we can enter some the quick replies, right? So let me remove them first, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So click that quick reply, right? And then basically you can type your information there. Like for example, I'm just going to copy and paste it here. Right, and then give it a title.
So these are very similar to our custom prompts that we're using in general Copilot that we're out there. Now we're saying, hey, we know some of the questions that you're probably going to want to ask. Let's just throw them in there so you don't have to worry about it. And you can make those as elaborate as you wanted as a prompt.
So this is one way to enter them by using the GUI, but it's a little bit slow. So what I usually do is like I will just open the code editor, right? And then just update it there. Like for example, I can just like do that. I can copy and paste, right? Just very important. These spaces is very important. Just make sure you have the right number of spaces. And then you click save. I'm going to just do a save here. It shouldn't take too long, but we'll show you actually it just worked very nicely.
And excuse me. Well, as that's saving, the next topic, Ping, how much more do we have here? I know that we've got, I just want to be conscious of time.
Yeah, probably just a couple minutes should be done, right? So, yep. So basically when you do that and, it just give you all that quick replies, messages here, and we are ready. So next things, what we want to do publish, right? And actually you'd probably notice, right? There's something different recently, right? You don't see the demo website here. Usually give you the demo website in this area. And then basically once you publish it, you can click it and then it will bring up the demo website. I think that Microsoft recently made some changes because of the security. So what you would need to do, right, if you still want to enable the demo website, you would need to go to setting, security, authentication. You would need to use like either no authentication or use manual, right? But be mindful when you use no authentication, because if you do that, then anybody has the link to the website will have access to your Copilot. If you have private information or confidential information, you don't want to do that, right? But for for this demo, I'm going to just show you when you do no authentication. Again, right? It kind of tell you that, give you the warning. If you save, and I'm going to show you the demo website link comes back. It becomes enable again. Publish. See, the demo website link comes back, right? So also, let's go back to the security. Just mention a few things here. Pretty important.
I think at this point, we need to let Scott pull back up the last few slides to stay back on schedule. So Scott, why don't you step in and
all right, great. Thanks.
All right.
Back to you, Scott.
Awesome. Well, I think that, I mean, that presentation is something that's usable, and I think most people could apply or get into their get into their daily use of Copilot. And what's really great about that is everybody can go out and play with it today. It is not leveraging the M365 for Copilot services there. It's looking like I'm going to have to upload my deck here again, but while that's uploading, I can keep on talking. So all of this is fine and great, but now how do I know? I rolled it out. Who's using this darn thing? How do I know who's using it? And what we want to do is start looking at some of that information. Now, this is evolving very quickly, and we'll go through 3 flavors of the reporting and metrics. All of this data is stored in the Microsoft Fabric, so you can create additional reporting around that. This is the out-of-the-box reporting, which you would find either through the M365 Admin Center or through the Power BI Copilot adoption application. So there's an app that you can install that will go look at your current implementation and usage in there. But the stats that you're going to be getting are 2 things, right? Summarization and creation. And then what aspects and where are they using these things? So I can start to identify maybe test groups. Are they using it what I anticipated? Or maybe a scenario is nobody's using anything but the Teams feature sets. Well, how do I expand my footprint by either educating my users that there's other aspects, or maybe those users would be better with Teams Premium than Copilot for a reduced cost. So there's a lot of things that I can do in my organization as I plan to roll out these licenses and make sure they're in the hands of the people that will use them best. Because back to that, what I was saying about the dollars and cents, this is an expensive investment. But if I can show value and my users are using it, it's worth every single penny, every single day. What we've done internally, and we've seen have more value, is taking that data underneath this in the Microsoft Fabric and surfacing it more to what we see towards our use cases, what we're trying to identify in our own customer scenario. So identifying aspects of, hey, who's using this in OneNote? Well, nobody is. Well, do we really care, or do we want to start pushing that adoption? So as we drive through that adoption, making pushes for teams, making suggestions of prompts of what people can do to get more into it and understand the power that it has. So creating those reports is part of your kind of closing up the loop of, after we roll these out, I have to report back up to management and say, what is the value we're getting? Who's using this? What is my plan for the next 12 months? Do I want to buy more of these licenses? So these are all things. Now, one thing to also remember is this Fabric data, like a lot of Microsoft usage data, does not have a ton of history, 30 days, maybe 90 days. So when you go in, if you really want to plan on using this usage data, have some sort of plan of creating a repository so you can have this data long-term and keeping that data. As well as one other thing, in the admin console, you have the ability to switch on or off whether you can see the user ID or the personal, the UPN of the users making these calls or requests. This is very valuable, but maybe not for everybody. And the reason it's valuable is then I can turn around and I can start making very, very detailed reporting saying, of the finance department that we rolled out 100 licenses of this, these 3 people are using it daily and nobody else is. So maybe maybe they don't need it. So that goes back to our recoup. And one thing that we've seen very valuable in this reporting process is being able to go out, petition our users for feedback, and that they have to be champions of it. And if they're not doing that, we recoup the license. It's too expensive to have someone sitting with it idle in their inbox. So we've seen that. If I don't use it for 30 days, my license for Copilot, I'll be notified that it's going away, and then it'll be reprovisioned to somebody who's requested and has a use case they're willing to work on. So we've seen that, even though it's a little heavy-handed and a big stick that we're carrying around, it's really working, and it allows us to go back and say, this is the value that we're getting out of this investment that you've given us. And the very last thing on measurements and realization is in private preview right now. It might be public preview very shortly, is that there is a Copilot in Viva Insights. So now if I leverage Viva Insights, I get that additional deeper understanding of how people are using it, what aspects they're using, and driving that really user experience around not just, am I using the product, am I using it the way that I'm hoping to, on things like readiness, adoption, and impact on their daily job. So like I said earlier, this is all in flight and changing very quickly. And I am done with reporting. And I wanted to run over, I know this is our last slide with any content, and I know the timing, we did start a couple minutes late, so we will wrap up here in the next 10 minutes. I see a couple prompts up there. I will circle back around with any questions as well when I get a moment here for like costing and things. I think they're probably being answered with the great Microsoft resources we have on the call. So a little bit about what we've done. We've been using this in EAP since October. Microsoft for M365, so the full-fledged version. Some things that we've learned, the big ones: keep an open conversation, share with your colleagues. If you have the ability to run a meeting recap, send it out to everybody afterwards so they can see how powerful this is and start to understand the prompts that you use to generate that great content. David alluded to it. Nothing's changed. Garbage in, garbage out. If you're not grooming your data, if you're not tagging your data, you're going to get in trouble. This is just another way in there. So make sure you do that up front. Thinking differently, of course. We talk about that a bunch. The time commitment for your champions. Let them know, like I said, that I have to realize that I might commit a couple hours a month to providing feedback because I am lucky enough to have this product enabled for me during this pilot phase there. And then thinking about timeline, right? Your first month is, let's just get it out there. Let's generate the buzz that first year. Let's get it into the first hands of these people and make sure we're getting the benefits that we need from it. And then year 1+, well, we don't really know what that's going to look like in this space yet. But what it's looked like in previous technologies similar to this is integrating with our third parties, making it automated, having Copilot take care of these things. Instead of me asking questions to Copilot, when I upload a document, maybe Copilot Studio chugs on that document and says, I found out this is an RFP, and these 5 people should be in on the RFP helping you respond because I saw these words, SharePoint and Teams and these sort of things. So getting smarter with it, but we are learning on the fly here. And now I'm going to stop talking and allow you to ask some questions, since we have about 7 minutes here till that we could chew up some time. So with that, floor is open. Nothing. All right. Well, I've got, if raise your hand if you've got one. Otherwise, I got a couple quick hits here that I know people have asked me previously. Is everybody in the meeting? If I have Copilot for M365, does everybody in the meeting need it to generate notes? No, they do not. The person generating the notes is the only person that needs that feature set. So I could be a project manager that has it and nobody else on my team has it, and I can take advantage of that aspect of it. That might be one of your use cases. Another one I had is, how do I know if I'm corporate protected? When you open up Bing or any of the chats, if you're in the web version, Copilot for web, you will see a line there that says your data is corporate protected. If you do not see that, you're probably throwing it out there to the live just Bing service. So look for that and make sure that you're aware of that's there and educate your users. So I don't see any other questions, but I'll be hanging around for a while. So hit me up. Dave, Ping, anything before we hand the baton?
No, I think that pretty much sums up what we wanted to present today. So thank you everybody for your time, and hope to hear from you over here at Kyndryl.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks, Scott, Dave, team. That was